Tom Pelissero is here, everybody.
Rich, what's up to the boys in studio?
Hey, looking great,
Tom,
man.
what
You're
up?
the best.
That hair.
Great seeing you, man.
All right, everybody.
Say hi,
Number
Rich.
one holiday when Tom's on.
No, don't want to.
No, I'm not waving hello to a video you're recording on your camera to send in. It's just so stupid.
This is going to be on Tom's Instagram.
Great for the gram.
Yeah, Tommy P.
Are the Vikings really reevaluating JJ McCarthy already? I mean, so many rumors abound that there's remorse already, that they've already, that they've evaluated enough from him already. What are you hearing there in Minnesota about what's happening at the quarterback spot now that it's obviously laser focused with them visiting Sam Darnold this weekend? Tom?
I would definitely not categorize it as remorse regarding JJ McCarthy. He's still, and everything I'm about to say is not making excuses for JJ McCarthy or saying that he's played better than he actually has. He's made 6 NFL starts. He is a guy who missed every rep in his first year. He missed the bulk of the first half of his second year with an injury, and now he's sidelined in all likelihood a third time, and we'll see an undrafted rookie, Max Brosmer, starting against the Seahawks on Sunday. After the season, I have no doubt that, between Kevin O'Connell, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, and others, and they probably already thought through some of these things, you'll do an autopsy of sorts on the 2025 season. The biggest question, it's never been, why didn't they try to retain those guys? They made an offer to Sam Darnold. They just weren't willing to do the type of multi-year commitment because they wanted JJ McCarthy to be able to step in. They tried on Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones ultimately decided his better chance to earn a long-term starting job was in Indianapolis. They at least thought about when Aaron Rodgers brought up the idea of coming. But again, bringing in an Aaron Rodgers, even on a one-year deal, you're effectively saying we're never going to bench him, meaning J.J. McCarthy's opportunity is being pushed further out. And when you're doing the calculus in terms of your resource management, in terms of your cap allocation, you want to utilize that rookie quarterback window sooner than later. And you look at the moves that they made in this offseason. You go and you sign 2 defensive tackles and you sign 2 interior offensive linemen. You wanted to get tougher on both fronts. If you give Sam Darnold, what did he get in Seattle? 3 years and $100 million, I think. It makes it harder to make some of those moves. That's why teams try to take advantage of the rookie quarterback window. To this point, it has not worked out. And there are a multitude of reasons for that. It's the injuries. It's, J.J. McCarthy's had a lot going on in his life, going all the way back to week 2, coming off the rally in Chicago in the opener and everyone being fired up. And short week, his son is born. He misses some practice, doesn't play well, and then gets hurt. There's so many things the young quarterbacks have to do to have success in the NFL. And it's hard when you just don't have the opportunity to stack those reps. I fully anticipate, and it's already happening, that they're going to evaluate everything in terms of the quarterback position moving forward. But it's not as if, certainly not anyone I've talked to is sitting there going, this was a failure. Why did we ever draft him? It's more, this has been really, really challenging out of the gate. And as much as you saw JJ early in that game. I was there at Lambeau Field on Sunday. The first couple of drives, he was making accurate throws. He was getting Justin Jefferson involved. That game really flipped on a weird muffed punt fiasco that totally changed the game and gave the Packers a padded lead that turned loose Micah Parsons and everything else. But then, you look in the second half, JJ's dropping back, trying to make things happen. He's missing throws. He's throwing into double coverage. That's kind of been the pattern, which is the good has been pretty good. The Detroit game was good. Baltimore had its moments. Obviously, the fourth quarter against Chicago, but putting together a full game, the bad has just been so bad that it's really hard. And statistically right now, J.J. McCarthy is one of the least efficient quarterbacks in the entire NFL.
Pull back the curtain on what's happening in Cleveland. Is this Shedeur's starting gig to keep if he continues to improve? What are they thinking there in Cleveland?
Well, Shedeur already did enough that Dylan Gabriel's out of the concussion protocol and he's getting the second start. The plan was always in Cleveland. They wanted to see both these guys. They got an extra first-round pick. They got all these resources at the position in 2026. They also were in a unique position to draft 2 guys in the mid-rounds because quarterbacks just weren't coming off the board. They always intended to get an evaluation of both players through the season. Now, Shedeur's opportunity came sooner than it would otherwise have. if Dylan Gabriel had not suffered a concussion, but they went out and they won. How much of that was Shedeur? He completed 11 passes for around 200 yards. His touchdown is like a bubble screen, and one of their many bright young rookies on this team. It was a showcase. Takes that thing to the house. Dylan Sampson, showing why he, on top of Quinshon Judkins and Harold Fannin and Carson Schwessinger, who might be the defensive player of the year, and Mason Graham, like they got dudes in this draft class. If one of these quarterbacks even is a thought to be your starter in 2026, it's a massive home run. But credit to Shedeur, he played good enough to win. He had an interception in the game as well. It wasn't like he went out and proved he's an NFL MVP, but he played well enough that it makes sense. Coming home, you're trying to have some juice. We keep talking, Rich, about, hey, the Bengals might be able to make a run. The Bengals and the Browns have the same record. They're both 3-8. They're both 3 games back in the AFC North, which, based upon how Baltimore and Pittsburgh look, I'm not saying it's likely. We all know what the stats and the analytics say. This is like less than 1% chance these teams are going to win it, but like they've got a chance now. Browns coming home facing a tough opponent on Sunday. That stadium's going to be rocking, and a big part of that reason is for Shedeur Sanders. Like you look at it right there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not over. They're facing a beat up 49ers team. Let's see what Shedeur can do. I go back to, Rich, just to something we talked about last week, and all the talk of, he's being sabotaged and all this stuff. Let's not, just like I said, let's not overreact to one start, but also there's going to be this narrative that keeps on going, which is basically anything that Shedeur does right is because Shedeur is so great, and anything that goes wrong, it's because Kevin Stefanski's trying to screw him. Give Kevin Stefanski and Tommy Rees credit for building a game plan around Shedeur. They were asking him to do things that he's good at last week, and it's a credit to Shedeur that he went out and he executed those things. He didn't take the deep sacks. He wasn't running around all day and getting himself in trouble. He played on time a lot of the time. He made enough plays for the Browns to get a win.
And then, as you pointed out, you observed in one of your posts this week, Tom, that Pete Carroll's never fired an assistant in his entire career and has now done so twice in the span of 17 days. Special teams and now offensive coordinator Chip Kelly is out. What is Tom Brady thinking? Because it's really what it comes down to. Let's be honest. Let's just boil it down. Like what? How much was he influential in the decisions of these coaching staff that Pete is now changing middle of the season? And what decisions need to be made over the final, or needs to be seen over the next 6 weeks to potentially make more decisions in Vegas?
Well, let's rewind to last January.
Okay.
It had become apparent by the end of last season that Tom Brady's number one choice was Ben Johnson. That was the coach that he wanted. He had talked about him at times in certain ways, and people read into his comments on the broadcast. He had certainly spoken with him before games and things like that. Tom Brady is maybe not just the greatest, but the smartest quarterback to ever play the game. And the things that he saw Ben Johnson do were so next level in Detroit. That was the guy he wanted. And there was a bet of sorts made by the Raiders that it's Tom Brady. Who's going to say no to Tom Brady? So Tom was directly recruiting Ben Johnson and trying to convince him to come. The Raiders, I was told at the time, had a massive offer out to Ben Johnson. They wanted him to come in the building and go through a second interview, but it was pretty apparent if Ben wanted the job, it was Ben's job. Well, one day after the Lions season ends, he's on a plane to Chicago, and he is taking the Bears job without even having to do an in-person interview. His performance against the Bears had kind of been his interview for a couple of years, but the Bears also made him a really strong offer. And I got the sense even at the time that there was no clear plan B. Not that they didn't have different thoughts in mind about who they might want to interview, but they interviewed, a variety of coaches from different backgrounds. They interviewed, Robert Saleh was somebody who had interviewed with them. They interviewed some other younger coaches. They interviewed some older coaches. Pete Carroll, philosophically, schematically, age, personality, has virtually nothing in common with Ben Johnson. And the point I'm making is, not only did you pivot in terms of the coach you hired, you completely pivoted in the way that you were trying to build it. From Ben Johnson, offensive guru, he's 39 years old or whatever, long-term answer, to Pete Carroll, defensive coach in his 70s, was out last year, just wants to run the football, throw it when he needs to. and win with defense. It was totally different. Chip Kelly seemed like he was the bridge between the two, which was Chip had been regarded at his peak, going back to Oregon and early on in Philadelphia, as being somebody who was really, really smart with offense. But what you saw was once Chip didn't have the players who were better than everyone else, he had Deshaun Jackson, LaShawn McCoy early in Philly. He made the choices to get rid of them. All of a sudden, the Eagles' offense wasn't the same. He goes to San Francisco. That offense was not the same. He's out of the NFL. He goes back to college. Ohio State, what's the common denominator? Better athletes than everybody else had. I was at the week 1 game. The Raiders beat the Patriots.
Yeah.
But that might be the weirdest result of the entire NFL schedule.
No doubt.
When you rewind, it was kind of bumpy that day, but they made some plays. And it just seemed like from week 2 on, teams just kind of caught up with what the Raiders were doing. And there are all kinds of different stories, Rich, about just the dysfunction of the Raiders offense. There were times I was told where Chip Kelly was repeatedly botching the play calls, where he's supposed to be, for instance, tagging a motion on a play so the receiver's on the left, not the right. He forgets to say it, so Geno Smith is going to the line of scrimmage and going, this doesn't look right, and they're trying to run a play. It happened on a 3rd down in the game the other day. There's times where Chip, I was told on several occasions, called a play that was either not in the game plan or not installed at all. Things like that happen. You're not productive. That's enough. You didn't need any extra excuses.
Damn.
But there were a lot of things that were popping up within games that were just not anything that a good team can overcome. They didn't have enough talent. There's no doubt about it. Maybe my favorite stat of the entire season is there were only 3 players on the Raiders offense who were making more money than Chip Kelly. It was Geno Smith, Colton Miller, and Ashton Genty was making like 6.1. Chip was making $6 million a year. I can't think of another team that had a setup like that. It was always going to be a challenge for them offensively, but Chip's scheme was supposed to elevate it, and what you saw on the field made pretty obvious. There was kind of a level of chaos to it that just made it really, really hard for them to function.
It makes it hard to even imagine how you move forward. Like what next?
Well, and those are the things.
That's why I asked about Brady. Like, you got to whatever's going between those temples, and obviously, he's got his I guess Sunday job as well. Tom Pelissero here on the Rich Eisen Show. Before I let you go, sir, the conversation in college is all about Lane Kiffin, his choice between staying in Ole Miss and Florida and LSU throwing tons of money at him, and when he's got to make a decision. And there's an Ole Miss playoff run, and yada, yada, yada. Is the pro game also in his mix? Is there anything you're hearing about the NFL being part of his decision-making process, Tom?
There were rumblings months ago that perhaps there might be an opportunity that would intrigue Lane in the NFL. I have not heard anything substantive on that front over the past, I would say, month or so, in large part because you've got, one of the top agents in the college game, Jimmy Sexton, who is currently managing a multifaceted push for a coach who's having the best year that he's ever had at Ole Miss. It does not sound like at this point. I know there's logical connections that can be made to a certain quarterback who's now in New York with a team that has a head coaching opening. I have not gotten that sense. You never say never on any of these things. I do believe that this is a unique year, and I wrote my annual Rising Young Coaches story last week. There is not a Ben Johnson this year. There is not a slam dunk. This guy is going to get a job if he wants one. He's definitely going to have one. We don't have that in this group. There's also not a Mike Vrabel, where it's everyone just kind of assumes, okay, Vrabel takes one and Ben takes one. Now who takes the other jobs? So there are a bunch of young coaches that I think are going to be in the mix. There are some names that I don't know that are getting a ton of attention right now that I think are going to end up at minimum getting interviews for jobs. There will be a bunch of former head coaches that are in the mix. Mike McCarthy, I would say, stands alone as a Super Bowl champion who is currently not coaching. He's living back in Green Bay. I've seen him a couple of times up there, including I ran into him in the loading dock at the Packers-Eagles game 2 weeks ago, which was kind of funny. It was on his birthday, and I said, Tom, and I'm like, What are you doing here? He's like, it's a great game. Like he's loving having that opportunity with his family. they love Green Bay, but he's just, he's around town. But he, I can tell you, Mike still wants to coach in the right opportunity. He would be very interested. And he's got some, qualifications on his resume that no one else has, which is number one, building 2 programs in the NFL, both of which broke through in his second season at the helm. He's won a Super Bowl, perpetually in the playoffs, won over 60% of his games. Mike is absolutely, I believe, going to have interviews. He's going to be selective. He's not going to take any job, but there are some opportunities out there that I believe are going to intrigue him. And beyond that, Jeff Hafley's having a great year with the Packers as the defensive coordinator, former Boston College head coach. Matt Nagy, some of the other coordinators who have not had head coaching jobs, like Lou Anarumo, Matt Burke, Anthony Weaver could be. He's had interviews in the past couple of years here. But those college coaches, when you have, Rich, those no clear frontline candidates, and I fully anticipate we're going to be at the historic average of 6 or 7 openings this year. Does somebody make a run at Marcus Freeman again, the Notre Dame head coach? Over the last 2 off seasons, both times there have been teams, the Raiders a couple of years ago, the Bears last year, who were really intrigued by Marcus Freeman because of his age, because of his leadership, because of his X's and O's knowledge. I would say that's a name that's more likely to come up than Lane Kiffin. But in the wide world of crazy coaching moves here, Rich, who knows? There could be some other things that we're not anticipating that pop up sometime here in the next couple of months.
Belichick? Blank check? Belichick?
Bill Belichick, I keep saying it, and he can have somebody post statements for him on Instagram about
just say Lombardi's name by
NFL
name.
jobs.
Just call Mike by name. Just call Mike by his name. It's okay. Go for it.
I don't know if it was Mike.
Okay.
There were some typos in the statement.
Okay.
Bill would absolutely
Attaboy,
be
Tom.
Interested.
Yes.
He would absolutely listen in certain spots, but somebody's got to be willing to do it. And I know that I've said this before. I said it on game day morning. I'll repeat it again. If Bill takes a job, it's not going to be. You're not going to hear the second week of January, Bill's doing a first interview and Bill's going to be a finalist.
Yeah, none of that
anymore. Just be the whole process will take place. He's not going to get wrapped into it like Atlanta.
Yeah.
Someone will run an entire process. They'll get to the end. They'll go, we don't know who to hire. And then an owner will go, let's just go get Belichick. And one day, hopefully, I'll be the one that's reporting Bill's on a plane to City X, and he's going to take the job. That's what it's going to be. Dark of night, in the shadows. Until then, it'll be deny. But is Bill Belichick still open to coming back to the NFL? I would tell you, based on everything I know, absolutely. Tom,
thanks, man. Have a great Thanksgiving. I'll see you throughout the weekend, obviously. Good to chat. You're the best, man. Appreciate it.
You too, Rich. Thanks.
Tommy P, everybody.
See you,
Tom
buddy.
Pelissero.
Bye, Tommy.
Here on the Rich Eisen Show.
Later, bro.
Hey, you made it all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Check us out every single day streaming live on Disney Plus and the ESPN app 12 to 3 Eastern.